Nigel,
Yes.
Nigel Frith, I see you're communing with a couple of your friends.
I am. It's been very nice to meet them again. Alecchino from Bergamo and Pucinella from Napoli. Yes.
But of course, you in part one of this series, you gave us a comprehensive view of their antecedents and their purpose.
We've dealt with them, so I think we could ask them if they don't mind just
if they would leave the stage,
moving aside. And I don't know if you can see it, but we have another masked character here who is called Pantaloni, and I'd like to deal with him.
Yes.
And I can do that straight away with the movements. Because, and now I'll have to refer to you again, I'm sorry about this, but as you remember, Bob, you played Capitano, and his movements, as you remember, were very strange movements. And I mean, they were very difficult for you to keep up because they were tremendous pressure on your thighs. But Capitano is our tremendously ferocious captain, you see, who's actually a coward. And so he is always sloping backwards like this. But if he gets a fright, he turns on his axis and disappears the other way. So
yes, I do remember that. I have the scars and the overextended limbs.
It's given you these wonderful thighs, which is a pity you can't come and demonstrate them, but there we are. But you see, all these characters, as you remember, when we did our production of Commedia in the Playhouse in 1987, we were extremely lucky to have this girl, Susie Rickards, come straight back from Italy, where she had spent a year being trained in Commedia dell'Arte movement, and so she used to teach us it. And as I was saying, the Commedia movements are the same as ballet. Ballet took over from Commedia. So we would all start the session with a ballet session of first position. Second position was just like a ballet one, but it was more grotesque and you bent your knees a bit. So instead of ballet second, I told you I was old in the balance game, you bend your knees a little bit. So it's a Commedia second, third, Commedia fourth position, and fifth position is the same. So we would have all those positions, and then you're very upright, as I said, with your arms nice and rounded. But from that basic, which is basic to all the characters, you then build the different characters. Now Pantaloni was a merchant in Venice, and he was very crafty, but he was also very old. So if you just logically work this out, movement-wise, that means he's in the Commedia ballet positions, but his spine has totally collapsed. But he's very, very crafty. So his head's up, but he's also mean, and so his hands are always close into his side. So you see, that is the movement of Pantaloni. He's also old, as I am, likely to fall over. I should do that as my last piece. And the thing is, with Pantaloni, his mind is much quicker than his poor old body. So when he wants to move left, just let me get the collapse. When he wants to move left, his head goes first, and then his body will come along later.
Yes.
And the thing is, once you've seen these defined and acted out by people like Susie Rickard, you think, well, that just looks like an old man. But Pantaloni has a sidekick. We did just see quickly a photo of him. Dottore. Pantaloni is mean, merchant, and he's from Venice. So he talks with a Venetian accent. Pucinella talks with a Neapolitan accent. Alecchino has a Bergamesque accent. But Dottore is a friend of Pantaloni's, and he's as old as Pantaloni, but he's a totally different character. He's from Bologna. Bologna. I was just reading about Bologna in the paper this morning. There's a complaint that there's far too much mortadella in the town now, because it's got so famous from this famous sausage that all the shops have got it, and everyone is eating it, and of course they get fatter and fatter, as does the Dottore. So Dottore has the first position like this, and lean is slightly bent, but he's the opposite of Pantalone. He's absolutely bloated with everything, so his stomach swells out, his head perches just on the back, and his hands are close to his chest, but they're sort of just like flippers.
Yes,
so
yes.
that's Dottore.
Yes.
And when Dottore moves, his stomach goes first and his head will come along later.
Yes.
But again, it just makes a comical character, and you think of Walt Disney cartoons, because there's a lot in. For instance, when cartoons look that way, they go and that way, and that's called opposition, because that is. I mean, I think in ballet too. If you're looking over there, you present a lovely picture if your hands go in opposition. In 19th century melodrama, you went the same way, and that's why you see these old photos of Henry Irving going, ah! So those are the moves, the grotesque moves of Pantalone and Dottore, and of course when they talk to each other they fit together, because there's Dottore going like this, you see, there's Pantalone go like this.
Yes.
And it looks at a hippopotamus has rolled over on a snake.
I mean, it's rather, in retrospect, distressing to think that you had to confine yourself to playing the part of Arlecchino when your play was put on at the Playhouse. You could have played all the characters, evidently. You had all the moves worked out.
Yes, but the funny thing is, now you've... I used to think with Pantalone's moves, oh, they're a bit overdone, you know. Does he need to be so doddery? But now I'm old myself, I can see that you just get like that.
Well, the Pantaloon in Shakespeare, of course, is exactly as Jacques describes.
Yes.
A pantaloon.
A pantaloon is that aged period.
Yeah, yeah.
And in Taming of the Shrew, when Baptista comes on, he is the Pantaloon character, and it says in the stage direction, enter Baptista of Pantaloon. And,
yes.
Taming of the Shrew is a perfect Commedia type play. He took it from one of these Commedia erudita, the plot. But I dealt with how these masks might have originated, you know, how Arlecchino's mask might have come from ancient Roman times, and actually if you put the chin back on, you've got a perfect Roman mask, haven't you, with a great big wide grin, and a tragedy is the opposite. The masks of tragedy and comedy are ancient world masks, but if they were Commedia masks, they would be half masks. And so I think over the years where these professional companies went into the countryside and were drummed out of the cities because the Christians wouldn't allow them to perform, it was irreligious, I think they just dropped the chins eventually, which is another reason I think why they really did come from ancient times.
Yes, but now we might treat ourselves to the beautiful people.
Yes, but to get my breath back a bit more, I'm just going to say what happened to Commedia. We've seen where it developed from, what happened to it. And it took off and became really the basis of theatre. Because you see, a comedy, people playing in Italian could generally be understood, even if we were English. But the French especially could understand Italian quite well, and so Italian troops went to France a lot. And I was just reading, you know, there's a letter from
Italian acting troops.
Italian acting troops, yes. They became famous. One was called the Gelossi, and that had a famous actress called Isabella Andreina, who could play the lute beautifully, who could dance, who could sing, and who could improvise dialogue in the style of Petrarch. So she was. Kings were fighting to get her to come and play in their courts. And one settled in Paris in Louis XIV's time, and of course they became the Comédie Italienne, and of course the native company became the Comédie Française, and of course the Comédie Française is still there. It's still exactly the same company from the time of Louis XIV. the Italian comedians got a bit naughty and made fun of the king's mistress, and they were drummed out of Paris. But they did sort of creep back in eventually. But then they developed, and one further development I just want to deal with, especially for us Brits, is that they came to England. There was a chap called John Rich who studied how to do harlequinades, as they were called, with himself playing Harlequin, and he brought them over and put them on in Drury Lane, and you've got Harlequin Goes to the Moon, Harlequin Goes to Fairyland. These became big spectacles, everybody loved them, and it always had him in as Harlequin and the other Commedia characters too, until they started to act fairy tales, all in the characters. Pantalone would be the father of Cinderella, Colombina would be Cinderella, this sort of thing. When you got towards the end of the play, all the characters you've seen in the fairy tale would go ha 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 and turn back into their Commedia dell'Arte characters. And people would go, oh, they're our old friends again. And that was called the transformation scene. And that retained in these things. Anyway, the Harlequinades, you can just trace them. They went all the way through, and they are now the British pantomime, which, as we know, is on in every theatre in the land. And the traditions are all from the Commedia dell'Arte, including the transformation scene.
Yes. Now, we
finished.
We're in danger of thinking that it's all about grotesque characters.
Yes.
But they're rather beautiful people.
These are the beautiful people, yes. So just a quick sketch of them. I've shown you their movements and the ballet movements. It's not going to be very, very beautiful when I fall over. But with the just as in Shakespeare, you always have two pairs of lovers. You know, you've got Petruchio and Caterina in Taming of the Shrew, along with Bianca and what's his face? Hortensio, no, Fluminio or something. But, and one, often it seems one was tall and gracious, and the other one was smaller. And so in the Midsummer Night's Dream, they taunt each other. Well, you're a beanpole and you're a dwarf, you know. But in Commedia, it's first actor and first actress, with second actor and second actress. And the first actor and first actress are the most noble. So they stand like this when they talk to people. Their heads are very erect, and they include everybody. And the gentleman, with all Commedia, this stage is very good for Commedia because it's so frontal. Everything in Commedia you play out front. And so the first actor, when he crosses the stage, he looks at the audience, he looks where he wants to go, he looks back at the audience and walks across the stage in 5 steps, if you can do it. And he doesn't need to look at where he's going because he's in charge of himself. The first lady, oh, and then he bows when he gets to the other end. The first lady, she is the same, with a beautiful skirt sticking out here. So she looks at the audience, she looks where she wants to go, looks back at the audience, picks up her dress and crosses in 7 steps, and then curtsies. With the second actor and the second actress, they are more bouncy and they are a bit idiotic. So the second actor will look at the audience, look where he wants to go, look back at the audience, and he might trip over. And that was intentional that time, you see. And the same with the girl. She's, oh, Daddy, no, no, no. She's everything extreme, but she looks at the audience, looks where she wants to go, looks back at the audience, and she does it in 11 steps. So there are all these conventions, but as you can see, they all maintain this graciousness. And this is what I want to finish with, is that all this survives in what is called the grande révérence, with which a practice of the ballet ends. You see, you've got the pianist there, you've got the dance master there who's been drilling you, you might have a visitor. And so when all the people who are sweating away and out of breath like I am, come to the end, they do a grand révérence, and that is, they look over to the right and acknowledge the pianist, they look over to the left and acknowledge the visitor, they look over to the dance master and they bow to him. Oh no, sorry, they don't bow, they will bow like this. And I bow too. learned audience who I hope will be watching this on my website, thefritharchive.com.